What can I write in order to make Ozone Ocean take off his shirt for me the next time I play Dungeons and Dragons and holler at me like a preteen girl?
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is the Drunk Duck QUACKCAST with me, Ozone Ocean, and Baines, Pit, and Tance. All lovely people.
Love connection.
Lovely people. Yeah, we're going to be talking about love. All kinds of love. Platonic love, relationship
What
love
has to do with it?
It's a second-hand emotion. Sweet old-fashioned notion. All those sorts of aspects. But before we get into that, we've got to get into the featured comic that QUACKCAST did for us this week. She reviewed a comic called Bunny and Carrot. So take it away, Kwai, with this Bunny and Carrot.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Bunny and Carrot by Bunny Carrot, and it is rated M for mature. Bunny could have stayed underground and been happy, but one day he discovered Carrot, a once worshipped veggie that needed to be plucked. However, lurking deep in the forest live scary creatures like a monster pig that Bunny and Carrot are able to tag team and take down. Welcome to this dark world where the hero is a pink rabbit with a mouth on its stomach and his sidekick a talking carrot. The art is ultra vibrant with lots of pinks, neon green, and bright violet color choices. The art is also reminiscent to the drawing style of late-night MTV animated shows. Descend into the dark underbelly of the peaceful land of Eden and read Bunny and Carrot by Bunny Carrot, rated M.
And that was our feature, QUACKCAST. Thank you so much for that, Bunny and Carrot. Well, next up we have the featured music that Gun Wallace has given us. He gave it to me just at only a few hours before the QUACKCAST, actually. He got it in there, just under the wire. So it's a theme to Angels of the Fallen, which is a comic by Busty LaRue. Given that name, you'd think she's like a burlesque performer, but no, she's just a great comic artist. She just picked that name because it's cool.
That could be her real name.
It could indeed be. So yeah, Busty LaRue's comic, Angels of the Fallen. It's a good little comic. I read a bit of it. So break on into the other side, smash through the dimensional glass into the world of hot, tasty electro, spicy flamenco, and roaring guitar. Get your body moving to these irresistible sounds. You won't be able to stop yourself. So take it away, Gun Wallace, with Angels of the Fallen. And that was our music. Thank you for that, Gun Wallace. That was Angels of the Fallen. Busty LaRue. Rated T. So have a read of that. Okay. Love, guys. Love. There's all sorts of different kinds of love you can have. So we talked about this in our video, that our patrons can see. So if you want to see that, pay for the patron video. There's a few. So we can have platonic relationships, we can have established relationships, but the usual kind of relationships you're going to have in comic, the love relationship is couples, either, you've got either two characters sort of like will they, won't they? You've got one character lusting after another, or, crushing on another character, or you have like a love triangle or a love square, although I haven't really seen many of those. Tance tells me that's a thing.
Well, isn't that kind of like there's a central love, I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a love triangle at play, but the other person has another person. So they end up, like, it sort of neatly lines up in the end. Like, they sort of end up pairing off.
It could be two couples, but the two couples are not working.
Right.
But two of those characters are sort of wanting to pair off and tell the other two to piss off. You can have
I see. And then, like, the other two would have to get together with each other. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't.
Well,
see
maybe.
that.
Or maybe they don't.
That's a little too...
That's sort of a love square, isn't it? I mean, or a love rhombus.
Sort
of. No, a love trapezoid, maybe. It's a quadrilateral.
Yeah.
So it's a collapsing
Polygon.
house.
Yes. Things just aren't going to work out in that situation. Oh, jeez.
Faulty engineering.
That's awesome, Ted.
What?
No,
She sent me an icon.
Oh.
In the,
You keep scaring me. You make really weird noises. Like when you were dying before the cast, or like
yes.
You're just, I guess I can't see your face, so at first I'm not able to relate where the sound's coming from. Anyway, let's continue.
Like, I don't know. Yes, I apologize. I'm sick and I'm coughing and I'm just a mess. So that's why weird noises will come. Although I can't justify that last one with that.
You're a sick man.
Forget it.
Sick man.
It's true.
Well, let's get into the idea that we sort of brung up in the QUACKCAST video, was the established relationship. Now, you don't see much of this, like either in comics or movies or anything. It's a rarer thing. When you do see it, I think Kant's made the point of, you have to have some kind of tension within this. So what they'll normally do is there's trouble in the relationship, so it's in the process of breaking apart, or, one of the characters having an affair secretly, or there's tension for some reason within the relationship, and that's the only reason they have a relationship there, so they can have tension to do it. You very rarely have an established couple with a happy relationship. That's just a very unusual thing, because it's not good for tension or interest, I suppose.
It makes me think of the first two Jurassic Park movies, where I don't remember the names, so apologies for that. But the main lead, male and female, the archaeologists, the anthropologists,
Dr. Shed.
paleontologists, whatever. They got together in the end of the first Jurassic Park movie, and then in the second Jurassic Park movie, they were for some reason divorced, and not divorced, but separated. And
of course they were.
Had this other guy that she had the kid with, and then they had to get the romantic all over again, which was interesting. So
I don't think it got romantic all over again. I think it just kind of died, or they were just friends or something like that. But I don't think they got together again by the end.
She ended up, spoiler alert, she ended up helping him at the end. Like, she sent help or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they didn't get. Yeah, it was weird that they were broken up.
What was I thinking then? Because I remember that they had like maybe I made a mistake, but I think that at some point there was this tension, romantic tension again between them, whatever. But it was really weird.
It's kind of like there wasn't really a reason to kind of reintroduce the two characters or at least to have them separate. Like yeah, in real life that could very much happen, but when it comes to cinema and stuff, everything is very purposefully done, and they're showing, the Chekhov's gun kind of thing. And so, yeah, like she comes to play in the end when she has to call the army to come and save them or whatever. But you're right, it just kind of made this awkwardness. Like it drew attention to something that didn't need any attention, especially because it never was resolved further, or whatever. I don't know. It's just weird.
So it was a bad use of a love situation. Well, that reminds me. Now you're talking about ex-loves. That's the excellent film, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. So you have Bill Murray playing the titular character, Steve Zissou, and he had a relationship with Angelica Houston. I can't remember what her name is in the film, but Bill Murray's character, Angelica Houston, they're exes. And they're traveling on this boat together because she's actually the money behind it. So, and she's interested in her investment, or they needed money from her in order to do this film on this boat. And there's another lover of hers, played by Steve Goldblum, who is sort of like one of the potential love interests in the Jurassic Park film. I remember the first one. So Steve Goldblum is in this one as well. And you've got that sort of tension between those three characters, but they're all exes, which is interesting. So that's a bit of a dynamic that you don't usually see. It's quite a rare thing. So a mature relationship, but there's no kind of, physical connection or anything anymore. There's just the old jealousies and rivalries and that kind of stuff between the characters. So that's a really, I don't think you see that very often, do you? Three exes together.
No, you don't really, I guess. I don't know. Not that I watch a lot of romance stuff, but I mean, something like that could work, definitely. I realized what I was thinking of earlier on the video chat. And what I was thinking of was the later, not even the later, the second half of The Office of the entire series. It's interesting because the first part of the series, it's the whole will they, won't they with Jim and Pam and stuff like that. That's kind of like one of the big main things. But they don't get married at the end of the series. They get married in the middle of it. And after they get married, then you see, marital problems that happen, or they go through different things with their careers and stuff like that. And that's still really interesting. I mean, the later series, it sometimes becomes problematic in different ways as things tend to. But I really liked how they didn't save them getting together for like the very last episode climax, or something. Yeah, it was part of their story. Their story didn't end with getting married and being happily ever after. The hardest part of their relationship happened after they got married.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like that they showed that.
So they moved on from it and showed what happens after the happily ever after kind of situation.
Exactly.
Which is not that common. That's a good idea.
That reminds me,
go on,
I'm still, I don't remember the movie. I'll Google it after. But the whole idea was that you had this established couple of really cutthroat executives in different companies. The woman was very successful and the man was very successful. They had this great synergy together in the sense that they both were in the same headspace and they met up after hours to talk about how they absolutely destroyed people and stuff like that. But and this is something
in the
that,
company of men, is that what you're talking about?
Oh God.
I think so. But now that I talk about it, I remember that we actually have a webcomic that deals with such an approach, and it is Righteous. it starts with this couple of, again, very successful and very amoral people that are doing excellent in their industries, and then the guy gets this virus um, of morality, and he needs to help everyone. And how the marriage breaks apart because she doesn't have this virus, and he does. And so how progressively, I mean, at first she tries to help him because there is affection between them, but then she absolutely cannot keep up and will not. He doesn't want to keep up with him. And I remember there was this panel that was very succinct. I really liked it, where it said that this wasn't the deal when we got married. I didn't marry this man, I married the other one that we were before. And so let's end it here. And I really liked how it wasn't an issue of romance that broke up the relationship. It wasn't that they weren't in love. She still had affection for him, but the marriage dissolved on other issues, and that was very interesting. So
what was that comic called?
I'm looking for it in my favorites. I like that comic too. Yeah, it's really cool.
Do you know the name?
I'm trying to. Let's see. I'm looking for it. I'm a little behind on it, so I don't remember the name offhand.
But I like to binge read it. So.
Well, the movie Baines mentioned, In the Company of Men. Yeah, there's not a love story at all.
No
love in that film whatsoever.
No, that was pretty rough, man.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's interesting. So we have different kind of takes on the whole relationships ideas. Well, this whole idea of the established relationship is interesting because that's what you do not see that often, is it? It's not that common a thing either, as you're saying, to people sort of breaking up or getting together, or not getting together, exes coming together. Have you guys ever seen the film I can't remember what it's called. It's like something Until Midnight. And
part of that trilogy, like
exactly, that's it.
Before sunrise, before sunset. And,
that's it, yeah, with Ethan Hawke and some other
30
actor.
days later. Or
30 days later. That's
a different thing. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's an interesting love story. So you have, in the first film, two people who, they're just like strangers. They meet on a train and they sort of form a bond, and they're just walking together, and it just follows them over the course of one day. And, yeah, Before Sunrise, I think it's called, like you said. And you're just seeing that relationship grow. So you're just following a love story. That's all. As these two characters get together. In the second film, it's another. It comes up the same two characters. It's a sequel. I think it was filmed like 10 years later.
Yeah, it was 10 years later. Same actors, same director, and he didn't meet her after the first movie, apparently.
Exactly.
And now they run into each other 10 years later, and the second movie, to me, is way better, way more interesting.
Yeah, the second film is just such an interesting dynamic. So in the first film, they meet up together. They spend just one day together. You don't know if they slept together or not. The film sort of leaves that up in the air. But they had arranged to meet each other the next year. Yeah, in this film, like Baines has said, 10 years later, we work out that they didn't meet, and somehow they've come together 10 years later, and they're both successful in their own right. She's married someone else, he's married someone else, and they've just sort of pick up again with their relationship with each other. They're talking and chatting, and you're sort of wanting them to get together because there's there's all sorts of different levels to the how they're interacting. Is there jealousy going on? Is there recrimination? Is there the rekindled lust, rekindled love? Are we getting sort of hints of what happened behind the scenes, 10 years ago? Did they actually sleep together? Was there way more of a connection? There must be, because, my God, they really have got, the fires are burning, 10 years later after that one night, what's happening? And, yeah, it ends when you're thinking, oh, my God, they really are going to get together now, and it's going to be perfect. They're finally two people who are destined. Maybe it's going to happen. So that was a really, really interesting film and a lovely take on the whole relationship thing. The third film, I mean, this is a spoiler, but these films have been, really old now. I think that happened another 10 years later.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't seen the third one. I heard it's kind of hard to watch, a little raw emotionally, from what I hear. Yeah.
The third one is much harder because, the whole thing transport up in the video chat, they are now in an established relationship. And, of course, you have to have tension in an established relationship because you can't depict a relationship between two people that's happy. It doesn't work. So, yeah, you have that kind of thing going on. And over the course of the film, and again, these films don't depict, a whole year, a whole month, or a whole week. They're almost real time. Like the first one depicted the course of a night, so it's slightly accelerated, but it's only a night. The second one was absolutely real time.
Yeah, it's a couple hours, yeah.
Yes, no jumping ahead, nothing. You're seeing the characters interacting as they're interacting. There's nothing's happening off screen. The third film is the same. Nothing happens off screen. Everything is there. And yeah, you just get a snapshot of their lives, and you're getting filled on what happened on the last 10 years since.
Is the third one real time also? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's like 2 hours in their life or something, and things are tough.
Just in an evening.
Yeah.
So from memory,
it's way more sophisticated, right? To go into like a married couple down the road and take a real look at that, where the stakes are so different than like will he get the girl? Will she get the guy she wants or he wants? Like will they stay together? Like will they kiss? And it gets so much more complex.
Oh, it does.
More difficult to write, I would say, of course, because the problems are so much more complicated and the entanglements are so much deeper. Yeah, there's history there and everything.
So you're in a will they won't they, or in a a developing, budding love, you're experiencing the relationship coming together as the characters are. So you're learning about it at the same time they're learning about it. There's nothing hidden from you. There's nothing that has to be, indicated or whatever in some other way. In an established relationship, they have to fill you in on everything, which, that does make it harder.
I think that even that isn't actually necessary. I think that there is this stereotype of, of thinking that if we don't show, the eros part of love, let's say, and if we don't show, the hormones hitting through the roof or going through the roof or whatever, the universe is going to collapse and the story won't work. Whereas something that I really like seeing and I don't see often, and unfortunately I haven't had the chance to actually show it in my comic because, something happened I didn't predict. But the idea is that you can have an established couple that is happy being with each other and supportive of each other and sort of, going through life together. And you use this team up, in a sense, as a boost to your other plot. You show how they navigate the plot by being a team, by being connected to each other, by being people that rely on each other, for example. and what happens, and the actual relationship itself is never challenged, but it is like a
Right.
trait. You treat it as a trait of this character cluster, let's say. And I think that is something that isn't as explored as it should be, because for some reason, I don't know, people don't feel like that it will gain interest.
I think
But
you're more likely to see that in side characters.
Yes, for
Like,
sure.
You won't necessarily have that in a main character unless you've got the usual platonic pairing of, a character and their assistant or whatever. But yeah, it's side characters you will often see that. So there's often like the bad guy, the male and female together, like, Jesse and James in Pokemon. I love that show. So you got they're obviously in a relationship together, and that's a pretty common thing. So to have side characters do that, yeah.
Well, I thought they were siblings. They are not. I thought they were.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah. So you do find that in side characters, but not in main characters for some reason, where people do feel they have to show tension and stuff like that. But yeah, you'll have
and sometimes even, I mean, you could have the fact that they are so connected together be an issue in the main plot. The easiest way to go about that is that the one character has to pick between the other, his significant others or her significant others safety, and bringing success to whatever it is they're doing. The dilemma, for example. Or you could go ahead in different ways, like having to juggle the need of the couple with the actual plot, and things like that, which can present real problems that are very relatable. Because when you feel that you have to protect someone you love, not necessarily only from bullets, but protect them from hardship, or protect them from being exposed to something that you feel would hurt them or whatever, then you might get the character to go roundabout ways doing whatever it is they need to do, and getting them into all sorts of trouble just because they feel that the choice that is there and is a viable option is actually a non-choice for them. So there are many ways that you can use an established relationship for your plot and make it interesting and make it something dynamic, without it being, the new love, romance and stuff. I mean, they can be romantic and still be a couple already. And stuff.
Yeah, you can. Brady Bunch, sitcoms, that was a big thing in the old days. Those characters loved each other. There wasn't tension between them. Them. I was thinking, platonic relationships, which isn't, maybe there's love between the characters, but it's never going to show up in anything sexual or anything like that. And that can be between male and male, male and female, whatever. There can be any kind of thing. And I was trying to think of good examples of that, and I thought of a good one. Brock, and in the Venture Brothers cartoon, if you've ever seen that, this character called Brock is this incredibly manly, hyper-masculine character, and he's like the manservant of Rusty Venture, who is this used to be Rusty Venture, kind of a boy genius or something like that. And Brock is this like super secret agent guy who was assigned to be a bodyguard and look after him, but ended up like almost being the the mum kind of thing to his children. So he sort of looks after the Venture twins and make sure, you know, they're okay. And Rusty's like a terrible dad to them. So that's a really interesting platonic relationship dynamic with those characters. You know, they fall into the male-female roles, sort of, but yeah, that's done really well. And they haven't sort of fallen into the trap of making one character effeminate to sort of match the role. No, Brock is like ridiculously hyper toxic masculine, kind of like cartoonish. And Rusty doesn't become feminine to that. He's just like a dorky man who is, you know, lustful and, you know, like a very unworthy kind of character.
The only actual platonic relationship between same-sex pairs, in this particular case, not couples, like pairs, I can't think of a lot of well-done platonic relationships. But I remember when I was writing the article about the hetero pairing, like a man and woman being in a platonic relationship that will not and does not develop into something romantic ever. I had extreme trouble finding examples.
Yeah,
like
so
it was the best one that I found, and like I crossed my fingers that I checked enough and they don't pair off at some point. Is in how is this police crime series, TV series, very how is it called? Oh my God,
Is
I'm
it
getting
American, English?
It's American. It's American, and
like SVU.
yes, that's the one.
Law and Order, SVU.
Law and Order. Yes, excellent. I couldn't for the life of me remember it for some reason. Anyway,
I know everything.
So you have the main female lead, who is Liv, and she is very close friends with the prosecutor, Barbados, something like that. I'm terrible with names, if you don't realize.
Well,
So they have this very dynamic friendship between them. They are both single, and neither of them is gay, so they don't take this way of signaling that, you know, guys, this isn't going to happen. They are both the correct sexual orientation for a potential coupling, but they never do get romantic. They are very close friends. They will die for each other if necessary, but they are just friends, and I really like that. And I like that watching the series as well, especially in how they are very sincere with each other, and they know each other very well, like how they think, how they feel, how they would react in things, and they try to either help or preempt situations. And they're just like two fighters fighting back to back, or whatever it is they are dealing with, which isn't necessarily, you know, the case that they are solving only.
Yeah.
And romance never gets to be on the table, and it's not missing. That's the point. Like it isn't missing. They have a very full, lush friendship that is more than enough for these two characters. So I would like to see that more.
Yeah, for some reason that can really sort of add a different kind of spice and interest, not only because it's rare, but because I suppose you would expect it to be there, because, you know, they're, as you say, they're both single, they're of the correct sexual orientation for their particular relationship to happen. You know, it could be two gay guys that, you know, don't fall in love, they're just friends, and yeah, and
Exactly.
even if they're single, whatever, two gay ladies. So that can add a real kind of interest because, you expect it to happen and it never does.
Hmm. And it's also like a signaling that I think society needs in general, that a man and a woman are not obliged to be in any kind of sexual tension with each other
Yeah.
in order to interact. They can actually have different types of connections that are very meaningful without them ever being or having stemmed from like sexual desire. Like, sex isn't everything. It's a small part of life.
But and
So
giving them that kind of erotic eros relationship actually can weaken the rest of the plot. Like X-Files is a fantastic example.
oh my
So,
God, yes.
a fantastic platonic relationship in most of the series, and you do have the sexual tension actually ruins it because those characters are not right for each other in any way.
They don't even have chemistry anyway. But
It's a fan thing that caused that to happen, and it ruined the show in a lot of ways because no longer does that dynamic work. You've got to have the tension between them isn't a sexual tension that works. It's a tension of philosophy and a tension of the way they see the world. One of them, everything is potentially supernatural, and to the other, everything has to have logical, real explanation. So you have very different outlooks, and that's where the friction stems from. Not, oh my God, I could, really.
yeah. But
have
yeah,
sex
and
with her. Yeah.
exactly, and because the main conflict or the foil that they are for each other is very cerebral in a sense. Emotion, like a lust and instinct takes attention away from this. It doesn't let you enjoy it as much. Perhaps because it wasn't written well. I mean, there is also the possibility that they just didn't write the romance very well. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't be able to work at all. I'm just saying that they basically shoved in a B story that undermined the A story by forcing them to become couples. A couple, sorry. And there were many. No. So
Yeah. So that's an instance where platonic relationship would have worked much better. Good old X-Files. But like you say, that is a rare one. Well, we have not talked about the standard relationship thing. We've talked about all the different kind of weird ones. But okay, so like we talked about in the video, the purpose of romantic relationships, one of the purposes at least, is to give something very relatable and a very easy form of character development and tension and something to drive your story. So that's what either having love as a main plot or having it as a just a side plot or whatever. It's useful because it's universally relatable because of the old breeding imperative. But it's universally relatable, but it also gives you as an audience member something to sort of you've got that other level of interest in the work because you identify with the character and you want to be in a relationship with this other character. This one is getting a relationship, or you feel for their character and you want them to hook up and all that. So you've got all that kind of a level as well. But yeah, and it shows the character development, as I say, as we get to see their the stupid things they do in order to get this other person and what this other person does. There's different ways of telling love stories. Obviously, there's the love triangle, which we talked about, but there's the one-sided kind of way of telling love stories, which is where you get the audience to identify with the character, with one particular character who's going after other ones, whether it's male or female, it doesn't matter. And the other way is obviously to have both characters sort of equal. So you've got that kind of thing happening. I was just trying to think of an example of famous love story movies. Okay, so Sleepless in Seattle. You've got the Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan or someone. I can't remember who the other actor is in that one.
It was Meg Ryan, yes.
It was? So you've got,
Yes.
Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks in that one. And in that you have Meg Ryan basically stalking Tom Hanks. It's very interesting. So she has a crush on this fellow because of whatever reason, and she's stalking him, trying to get him to fall in love with her. Then you have another film with both of them, which was You've Got Mail, and that's shown from the other perspective. And then you have Tom Hanks stalking her, trying to get her to fall in love with him, working all her likes and dislikes through email and online stuff. So, you have a weird kind of situation. Oh, and you've also got Joe versus the Volcano, which happened before that. And then you have an even weirder one-sided relationship because you have Tom Hanks falling in love with many different instances of a girl who looks like Meg Ryan. Well, Meg Ryan in all playing like 3 different characters, I think.
And a volleyball. Who also looks like Meg Ryan.
Yeah, that when Meg Ryan was skinned and sort of turned into a volleyball in that a much later film. But that's in those films you've got the all the one-sided kind of relationship, but from different perspectives. So that's an interesting thing. People often think of the one-sided relationship as being the male gaze or a male kind of thing, but of course that's moronic. We've always had like one-sided relationships. Not one-sided relationships, but one-sided versions of relationships in film, media, books, and comics. Because it's easier to tell. It's easier to make people identify with one character rather than having a whole suite of characters. And it doesn't matter if it's male or female, whether it's Pride and Prejudice or Emma or something like that, all from a female perspective. Wuthering Heights. No, Wuthering Heights is not. Wuthering Heights is an example of more an equal kind of thing. But
one-sided relationships are the bread and butter of romantic drama series, especially, and usually it can create the single one source of obstructions and problems and dangerous situation for the main characters, because usually when you have one-sided relationships, feelings, the person that isn't reciprocating is probably involved with someone else. So you have the one that is left out of the whole situation being the antagonist or the villain, and they will try to conquer the person that doesn't want them and stuff like that. So you have these very nefarious, evil characters that are solely motivated by this obsession of forcing a relationship to happen with a person that just isn't into them. So
she's just not into you.
Yeah, and that's 90% of all romantic dramas.
Isn't that what villains do in all those old cartoons?
I mean, or you have
films?
the sad sort of nerd kind of character, right? In a more lighthearted,
Yes.
or maybe a drama comedy kind of thing. It would be the sort of
There's the friend zone.
the friend zone nerdy guy or whatever, or the guy who's like wants a girl out of his league. It's usually this way, gender wise. Wants someone who's like quote unquote out of his league.
Oh, I hate those
Or he thinks
depictions
so
of
anyway,
relationships. Yeah,
I remember my courtship method was to tie a girl to the railroad tracks.
Twirl your mustache.
Yeah. It almost never works.
You get a lot of sectioned women in 3 parts.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, I should have thought this through. I'm sorry.
Get the super glue out.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, yeah, villains always, for some reason, want women to marry them. No matter what they want, that's what villains used to want in things.
That's right.
You know, Princess Bride is a classic example. But, yeah, it was a really common thing.
But that was a twist. Like, that was a twist on the cliche, wasn't it? Because he wanted to marry her for the throne, and then he was going to kill her. But I think that was suggested.
Well,
or is that the
he
usual?
had to get married, so that was a bit of a twist.
Right, because the king. Right.
Yeah, in order to
because
sort
her
of
father was the
inherit
king.
the throne. No, she wasn't.
Or was she a peasant girl?
She was a peasant. I think Humperdinck had to get
right.
married in order for the king to give him the throne.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Yes, you're right. I had it wrong. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, but it was still, even though that was sort of subverting it that way, he didn't really like her.
Yeah, he was going to kill her on the wedding night. I do remember him saying that.
To have a war with the other kingdom, and then he'll be really popular, and all that's going to happen.
That's the way to make your villain completely unsympathetic. He doesn't even want to be with her.
But it's still the cliche, the villain wanting to marry an unwilling woman, which is super common. Dale Arden in Flash Gordon. That's a brilliant comic and a movie and everything. She has to marry Ming in that plot for some reason, because the women have to marry evil villains. That's just how it works.
That's the dream, anyway.
That's a good point, actually, because you have the flip side of the horrible villain versus the desirable hero. Now you have the sort of more sexy villainous, quote unquote villainous character, or the bad boy, or the kind of edgier person who's way more interesting to, at least to audience members sometimes, than the kind of boring hero character.
Oh yeah,
I think so. I mean, in your romances and stuff like that, yeah, like a lot of times, like
people like Betty and not Veronica, or is it the other way around? I can never remember.
Well, that's
I'm not talking about
different.
Riverdale. I'm talking about the Archie.
It's
comic.
usually when it's the choice between two guys with a female lead.
Yeah.
Like a lot of audience will prefer the bad boy, the male Veronica. I can't think of any examples offhand.
All right,
but
we've got Twilight. We have the werewolf guy versus the vampire guy. Yeah.
Okay, I've never read or seen those, but yeah.
Nor have I, but I know it. Jeez.
But is the werewolf kind of the nice guy? I guess he is, right? He's kind of the like.
I think from what I've seen, the vampire guy is the nice guy because he falls in love with him initially, and the werewolf guy is the muscly, bad boy because he's a werewolf. So.
Oh, okay.
I think they are supposed to both be desirable guys, and she just is so awesome that they all want him to get to pick, and then just reject the other multiple times because he will not, take no.
Well, then there's maybe for example, it's a little bit closer to home. There's Wolverine versus Cyclops and Jean Grey.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you've got that. Oh yeah, poor old.
Embarrassed, I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jean Grey and Cyclops are already in a relationship together, but yeah, you've got
Cyclops was the play by the rules boy, and Wolverine is the rebel flying by the seat of his pants. I'm too good to be in this place, kind of thing. And it's
he wears a leather jacket.
Kind of the ultimate bad boy character. He's a killer. He's animalistic.
He's got sideburns.
And yet, in the comics and in the movies, actually, there's a very much an attraction between like a sort of animalistic attraction between Wolverine and Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Like it's there, which is kind of funnier in the air.
Let me
In the
pull on
comics,
your
where
chops.
Wolverine is like a short little runt.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's kind of
he should be
funny.
short, but in the movie he's played by the gigantic Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, the
Huge
dynamic in the movies is
Jackman.
different.
Speaking of Hugh Jackman, there's also Phantom of the Opera, and you have
Classic.
Phantom
Yeah.
of the Opera and Raoul, who is the pawn in the equation, and they both want Christine, and she has to pick. And in her credit, she actually, I think she legitimately is attracted to both, and yeah.
Yeah, so she wants the Phantom and the pretty boy. Well, that's a pretty common thing, yeah. The Beauty and the Beast, at least the Disney version, they introduced this new character called what was his
A Gaston.
Gaston. Yeah, that's the Disney antagonist character. So
But she never wanted him. She was repulsed by him from the get-go.
So he's a villain. But the audience sort of attracted him because he's a more traditional male figure, He's he's confident and he's handsome and he's well built and
he's the hero.
He's got great
He's
hair.
A little bit dangerous too. He's a dark hero a little bit.
Yeah. He's got great hair. What else do you need? So yeah, it's a popular dynamic to have that. It's not really a love triangle either because the character's not necessarily in love with one of them. Well, because the love triangle involves more kind of overlapping, conflicting kind of stuff. But yeah, in those kind of situations, you've got you don't want them to be paired off. You want this pair. That's
exactly. The one thing that I like theoretically, if you read, I'm a Phantom of the Opera fan. I used to be for a very long time. Like really into the whole Gothic romance kind of thing. And the one thing that I had a gripe in the original, well, there are many originals, but let's say before the whole Hugh Jackman movie, was that the Phantom actually didn't really qualify as a candidate because if you took aside the whole mental and artistic connection that he had with Christine, he was older, he was extremely weird in many ways, and and of course he had the face issue, but that were the least of the issues. Whereas in and you knew, you felt sympathy for the Phantom and you liked him, but you also didn't want her to be stuck with him because he was damaged goods to the point that it was too damaged, even though you feel for him. Yeah. So it wasn't an equal triangle, let's say. Whereas in the iteration of the movie that many people don't like, but I really like it, it's my guilty pleasure, is that you have a legitimate antagonist to Raoul because even assuming that his face issue was legitimately problematic, which it isn't really in the movie, but let's say that it is. He has a dynamic and he has the proper age range. It's not like too far removed that makes it creepy. They are more or less, within the proper age range, and he actually stands to be considered as her match, as much as Raoul does. And I like as an audience to be split, to actually not know who to choose in a sense for her.
Right.
So I think it creates more of an issue, because otherwise, that even if the bad match, let's say, quote unquote, gets the girl, it's just not a
It's
happy
not
ending.
right, yeah.
It's not that the triangle is resolved. It's just that, she got dealt the bad card, in a sense. So
Yeah.
that's all.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I was thinking of so the really common love trope in anime, of course, is the harem, where you have either a man or a woman, or a boy or a girl. It's usually the boy with a whole bunch of potential love interests. Sometimes it's a girl with a whole bunch of potential love interests. But the true dynamic is there is only one real love interest. The rest are just decoys. They're all sort of phantom alternatives for the audience to sort of think, oh, yes, I like nerdy girls, or oh, yes, I like, lolly characters, or transgender characters, or, whatever else they're populating it with, sporty characters or whatever. So you've got all these sort of phantom love matches, but there's only one real love match that was normally the first love interest the character had, the first one they met out of all of them, and that's who they're going to end up with in the very end. So that's the way the harem dynamic works. But you're always sort of feeling a bit disappointed, I think, with those, because you as an audience member, you do fixate on your particular one, because that's what the point of a harem is for, in order to give you alternatives. I like the sporty one, or I like this one. And when the character doesn't end up with them, and they're never going to end up with them because they weren't the prime love interest, that it always builds in a disappointment. So yeah, that makes that dynamic, to me, not as fun.
Those are based on video games, like initially, right?
They are. So a dating sim, where you can
a dating
date
sim,
a whole lot
so the
of
player
characters,
chooses the one they want to pursue, kind of thing. And I like these. I won't say I like them, because I'm a mature man.
A mature man with a whole big pack of.
But they don't really work. It's tough. Like they don't really function properly as stories, in a way, in a weird way, because it's like it's the Mary Sue thing, and there's like kind of
because the main character has to have no personality, and everyone loves him.
Exactly, and also everyone loves them even more.
Or
like
her.
The no personality thing is bad, or her, and the everyone loving them is tough, because it's like there's nothing to strive for. It's like unrelatable to most of us, So it's just weird. It's like you have so many options. Which one will you pick? And that's your big problem. It's like, I don't know. It just doesn't quite work the same way as a regular story does. Obviously, it works and it's popular.
What, the harem thing?
Yeah, the harem thing. Yeah.
The worst thing about it, I think,
these are huge and successful, though, so they work in that sense, obviously. But
the worst thing for me is that the character is having to maintain a kind of float above them with this level of neutrality, saying, "Oh yeah, I like this other character, but I don't like them." They can't sort of show the other characters more favoritism where the other one's looking on. So you've always got that sort of tension, which is really icky and nasty. That's an awful kind of thing, trying to not show more love for this character or more love for that character, because you might hurt their feelings, which is not pleasant.
Well,
for me as an audience.
I mean, the ones I've seen, like the dude is always just so passive. He's not doing any. Maybe I've seen just bad ones or something, but like that's not even an issue. He just is just passively standing there as the girls do everything, and like, and then all the jealousy. Yeah, but he's not doing anything wrong, I guess, by definition, other than just saying nothing.
Well, yeah, that's one
weird.
thing.
Maybe those are the really lame ones I've seen.
Which actually, I have to say, and you might laugh, but this actually isn't always unrealistic. Because I remember when I was in high school.
You're part of a harem. You were the...
but, and I had about 5 friends, girlfriends, who were all infatuated with this one guy in school that I had no idea why they liked him. He was literally devoid of personality.
Oh God, the real
Had
life
nothing.
harem protagonist. Oh my
He
God.
was, and I remember him. I'm still bewildered after getting a master's in psychology. I'm bewildered. Why the hell they liked him? But they were all infatuated with him. They would buy him presents. They would try to win his affections. They would sort of, sashay up to him and sort of rub up against him.
Oh my
Like
cats.
I have no idea why they did it. He did nothing. He never showed affection or preference to any of them.
Yeah.
And he was always around them. And that was it.
Well, that actually reminds me of one other side of harem stories. When it's told from the perspective of the suitors or the the, I don't know what's the name for a female characters who are suitors. Well, female suitors, male suitors, whatever. When it's told from their perspective, then you have a very different story. So of course the male, the male or the female has no personality, but you learn a lot more about the harem's personality and their dynamics with each other and how they compete with each other, and you learn a lot more about them, and that the object of their affection is sort of irrelevant. But yeah, you have, maybe the whole thing about them being after that character isn't so much about what they, their inherent abilities or whatever. It's more about competition with each other.
Yeah.
So, I can get him from you girls and I'll be the winner. I will be
true.
I'll be the best.
Yeah. That's true. And what Tense said is true too. There is a reality to it. You do see it. I don't remember seeing it with like 5 women after one person, but I'm sure it happens. I'm sure that did happen. I've definitely seen like 2 girls wanting the same guy or 2 guys wanting the same girl,
Well, I haven't seen it in reality.
There's a reality to it.
I don't know. I haven't seen it since. And I
it was just that one time you ever did.
Yeah. Well, that one time was like 2 years.
That gets pretty crowded. That many.
Well,
the last 2 classes of Lyceum, because we don't have junior high and high school. We have high school and Lyceum here. So the last 2 classes, they went nuts, and I think it was like the only way I can explain it was that one of them started it and said, "Oh, I really like this guy," and then everyone got the virus for some reason. Like maybe it was an antagonism between them, more like who was better game him.
Okay.
I think that's pretty common in high school and stuff, though. Like you get 1 or 2 people that come out being the most popular, and you have people that are more attracted to them, perhaps because they're popular. We try and put reasons on it that relate to us, that we would understand, and that's why we don't understand it. Not saying that it's rational, but, high schoolers and kids flocking towards the most popular thing is not new on this earth.
Very true.
But he wasn't popular at the point. The
Sound like he was.
Guy,
it's popular with them.
because the girls, these girls were considered, let's say, marginal in the ranking of girls.
Okay.
So he wasn't actually popular. The most popular guy that we had in the school was paired up with the most popular girl, and that was it.
Right.
So we had the popular couple. So I think they were
So they
just
had
trying.
admirers for sure. Those popular kids, of course, probably had.
Oh yeah, of
admirers
course,
and stuff.
of course they did. And if for the most popular guy in the school, I was one of them. So I wasn't immune. I just couldn't understand that particular guy, like, because there were other non-popular guys that would be far more reasonable in a sense.
Right.
I think it was mostly circumstance that threw them all together in this situation. In any case, I'm not saying I'm saying that it can happen in real life. I have never seen it since, not even as a teacher, of classes of young people. But it has happened.
You have seen the harem in real life. Well,
Yes.
You do have people lusting after singular individuals, often, celebrities or bosses or, things like that. So, yeah, you do see the harem in those kind of aspects. When someone has power or visibility, so not necessarily will they have relationships with every single character, but perhaps a popular boss in a certain environment might have a lot of people cozying up to him. Maybe he has that kind of, or she has that sexual attraction.
I could have had a harem when I was in high school, actually. Just a little aside. I didn't find out about it until too late, or towards the end. But I found out because I was the goth metal kid, and I was hanging out with all the anime chicks, and they told me towards the end of the time that they all really liked me. And then they would grab my arms and do the anime thing where they try and yank you back and forth across the hall. It was really scary. I didn't enjoy it, but I was there for a day.
Oh my god. We have all sorts of harems coming out.
That's right. I can tell you from a first person account.
Wow.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, there we are. Massive harem celebrities. Well, this has been an interesting Quackcast on love. Thank you guys for...
Sorry I wasn't there for half of it, but it's in the middle of the day here and weird things go on.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. They say.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys. See you next week. Love y'all.
Bye-bye.
Love y'all. Love our listeners. Love everyone. Love.